Sanwanani, Dumelang, Absheni Molweni. If you are new to my channel, then hello and welcome. But if you're already part and parcel of this family or just happen to be returning, then you know what to do. So this is part 2 of my beef with idols, and essentially what we're going to be doing on this one is we're going to be getting into the meat of things. And so without wasting any more time, let's get it started.
I got a good right to make me laugh and cry and dance and smile. You're my joy, my pain, you are my life.
So my first problem is during the audition phase, and it's the fact that the rules that the judges apply when sort of like assessing whether or not a contestant's audition qualifies as good or not seem to be arbitrary. And what exactly do I mean by this? I'll make an example. Sometimes they'll penalize a contestant on the basis of the fact that they chose to audition with a song that is not current, meaning a song that could be from the 80s or the 90s. And they'll say something along the lines of, you know what, the song is not really suited for your age. The song is not really relevant to this era. And to me, that's never really made sense, because I was of the view that contestants are supposed to choose songs that are best suited for their voices and songs that can best showcase their vocal ability. And yeah, so the song could be like From Before Christ. That does not matter as long as it sort of like achieves what it's supposed to, and you find them doing that. And I just thought to myself, well, there seems to be a lapse in logic, because we have a judge on the panel, right, who sort of like usually makes references to the 80s or the 90s or the 60s when giving his commentary. So yeah, also about Tina Turner, and I'm just thinking to myself, I mean, who the hell is even that? I'm kidding. But we do not dismiss what he's saying, because, you know, most of the people that he's talking about are from like the past, but we understand that there's a point that he's trying to get across. So I was like, guys. And moreover, when the competition sort of like progresses to All Theatre Week, you find that, you know, when contestants have to choose from the roster of songs that Idols provides for them, or Stranger in My House by Tamia, or maybe Oh Thank God I Found You by Mariah Carey, those songs are from the 90s. And to me it was like, guys, there's a bit of inconsistency here, because the contestants haven't even gotten to a point like maybe in the top 10 where they're throwing it back to my 90s or my 60s as a challenge. So it seems like you guys are not. So that's my first problem. I remember a guy that had auditioned back in 2016, the best audition I've heard on South African Idols to this day.
To this day.
And the guy was rejected on the basis of the fact that they'd heard his voice before. And I'm assuming that they were talking about the fact that they'd heard his vocal texture from other contestants before. And even that did not make sense to me. But I was like, okay, maybe they are justified in saying, you know, what they're saying, because sometimes they'll go as far as to say that they're looking for contestants with a unique set of voices, because they will praise other contestants for having, you know, an African texture and wara. But you'll find that Kolama contestants that come through and give these kinds of auditions but aren't really accommodated when sort of like the competition progresses further, because the rest of it is just American Idols anyway. So to me it's like, then what's the point? Sometimes you'd find that some contestants would find themselves at a disadvantage with Urendal, because they were sort of like returning because, you know, he had a problem with Amaritenis. And for me that was like, why? Because it seemed like sometimes Urendal would say no for the sake of just seeming like the authoritative one, like among the group, like being that judge. And for me it was like, dude,
Boring.
So another issue that I have with Ama Idols, is the issue of preferential treatment. Sometimes Ama contestants are given, or so sometimes the judges will be lenient on other contestants because they've developed a liking to them. Because I remember a contestant by the name of Brandon back in 2020 made it all the way to top 3. And during, I think, Theatre Week, the first challenge that they had, he fumbled and they gave him a second chance. And as amazing as he is, and as much as I think that he's deserving, other contestants don't have the same grace extended to them. So it's like, you guys nyaket. Niaket. Another one that I will never forget is with regards to Usisiga Zosbini. That one was like so blatant. People were up in arms on Twitter talking about the fact that Usisiga Zosbini had gotten a golden ticket because of a sister, and I couldn't agree more. Because when you consider the caliber and the standard of a vocalist that get accepted on Idols, she wasn't even there. And for me, it was like, what's going on? She even made it all the way to Ama Group Rounds with Theatre Week, and I was like, guys, nisjwaila gabi. And I just felt that they were insulting the audience's intelligence. And for me, the big question was why the fact that Usiswa Kuzozibini was the leading thing on her profile, because at that stage of the competition, I don't remember Tina Sibuzo Mabuti, Indian yet Hoban. So yeah, it was like, guys, the credibility of the show sort of like tanked for me then, because Nambaba mu Benjamin Dube, but you don't see me, yabo. You know what? In fact, let's have a conversation about that. Speaking of contestants' profiles, I've always sort of like struggled to make sense of why it is that we are let in on the struggles of our contestants in the very beginning phases of the competition. Because in as much as I understand, Wuti, for musicians, music as a form of sort of like self-expression is intertwined with our lived experiences. I think that we have to consider the fact that most people actually show up on audition day, abantu abamnyama, and there's not a demographic that sort of like knows struggle intimately like abantu abamnyama. So it's going to be a competition of who's had it worse. And I'm like, why not let us in on that part of a contestant's lives when we've taken a genuine interest in them, like when they're in the top 10, for instance, when we're getting to know them a little bit better. Also, I just don't think that, Idols particularly cares about the struggles of contestants. I just think to the show it adds, an element of reality, and it has a selling point. But if, AMA Idols genuinely cared about contestants' struggles, then they would sort of like make it more accessible and not host AMA auditions in my main cities that go to all provinces. So I think one of the things which I struggle with, especially with regards to AMA Idols, is the fact that I've had to understand that it's a TV show before it is a talent search show. Meaning that, they'll always prioritize AMA ratings. Because I remember I used to enjoy the wooden section part of AMA Idols when it was authentic, when people thought they could sing, but it turned out that they couldn't. But now it seems as though the show is actively casting Amma wouldn't my contestants, because I remember there were these girls that actually came through to the show and were like, we are here for, you wouldn't mic, and they were just doing it for television, and I was bored out of my mind. I was like, it seems like, the show is sort of like losing its essence. I met Ayanda in 2016 when I auditioned, and after then he's made very many appearances.
Watch me, woo, watch me, woo, watch me, woo, watch me, nay.
And I'm just thinking to myself, I get it, but it is disheartening for me, Uguti, you have a better chances of getting to the judges if you're trying to be entertaining or trying to be funny than when you actually can sing. And for me, also, the problem is with the gimmicks. You have contestants being put in yoga and them sort of like being stripped down and, wearing ama swimsuits. And more than that, you have bodybuilders coming through. And I'm like, guys, what's all this extra shite? Why? Last, but certainly not least, is the fact that I wouldn't know most of AMA winners or AMA Idols were it not for watching the show. And for me, that's always been bizarre, because I'm just thinking, AMA Idols are the biggest competition in the country. Yet, after the kids win the competition, they sort of like go off the radar. And I even remember it was Amanda Black who had said that she was glad that she didn't win the competition because she wouldn't be where she is. So the fact that someone considers not winning, the competition a good omen, sort of like, I think says a lot. But what I really do think is that, AMA Idols really need new blood, especially with regards to AMA judges, but it seems that that's going to happen anyway with what's been happening on the circuit. So that brings me to the end of this episode. Thank you for staying with me up until the end of this rant, and guys, sharp.
So out of the blues, you gotta give it to you. Ain't nobody got you like you. Let it show.